Okay, this lesson is going to be an extra credit lesson, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got a 0% rate on all of our credit card debt as well as our car loans. And it's a little bit of a hack that we used. And just like the lesson on pausing your retirement savings, this is one where you really have to know yourself and make a good decision based on that. We're calling this lesson an extra credit one because it's absolutely optional. You don't at all need to do this, and I would recommend not doing it if you are someone who could get yourself into trouble doing this. So just definitely keep that in mind as you listen through this lesson. But essentially, the process that we used was to use balance transfers on different credit cards to move all of our outstanding debt, other than our mortgage, over to credit cards. And there can be risk on both sides of this. So in terms of losing our car, once we transfer that balance over to a credit card, it's now non-collateralized debt. And as a result, we don't have to worry about them taking our car anymore. Credit card companies have other things they can do, and they will work night and day to make sure they get their money out of you. But there's a little bit less risk in terms of you losing your mode of transportation in this particular instance. Now, the other hand, the other risk that's present here by using this kind of method is that we took advantage of 0% offers that different credit card companies created. So they might have an intro offer for 6 or 12 months of 0%. And then after that, that rate adjusts up to whatever their standard rate is. Maybe it's 12, 15% based on your credit. So it was a little bit of a shell game for us for a little bit, for a few years, where we would take everything, move it over to a 0%, and then that would last for 12 months, and then we'd move it to another one. And we just did it a couple different times. And so that requires a good level of organization. Kind of a meticulous type of person is someone who's going to be better at that than someone who forgets. So I was very meticulous about all this. I kept everything on a calendar. I knew when these intro periods were going to expire, and then I moved to another 0% at that point. So that's where you need to know yourself, and you need to know if this is something that could work for you. Because the downside is if you move things over to 0% and then that rate shoots up to 15% or 12%, and if you stay with that balance on a 15% credit card for any length of time, probably all the benefits that you got from transferring down to 0% are going to be lost, and then it probably will become worse with the interest charges that you'll have. So that's why I only recommend this for people who know that they can really keep up with it and take advantage of that. But all that said, I'm going to give you a little bit of a primer on some of the things you want to look for if you're going to be using this method. Okay, so this is cardratings.com. This is one of the bigger credit card sites out there where you can kind of look at a lot of different types of credit cards, and they kind of break down the information and things and make it pretty easy to digest. And so there's three main things that you want to pay attention to when you're looking for a credit card that you can transfer a balance to. And those three things you want to be looking for are a 0% intro rate. The other thing you want to look at is the length of the intro rate. So like I said, sometimes these are 6 months, sometimes they're even up to like 18 months. So obviously the longer that intro period for that 0%, the better. And then the other thing you want to look at, and this is really, really important, is you want to look to see if they have a balance transfer fee. A lot of times cards will charge you up to 3% of the balance to transfer it over into this intro rate. So if you're transferring over $1,000 from one credit card to one of the 0% ones, if they have a 3% balance transfer fee, that's going to charge you $30. So $10,000, that's going to be a $300 charge. So that's definitely something to pay attention to. A lot of them, and I would say most of them, do have balance transfer fees, but there are a few that don't, and those are the ones that really are what you want to go after. I mean, so the ideal situation is to find a 0% intro rate, and then it would have a long length of 12 months or longer, and they would have a 0 balance transfer fee. So that's kind of like the ideal thing that we're looking for. So over here, I'll just kind of look through a couple different cards here for you to take a look at. This is one of those kind of unicorns that, at least at the time it's recording, is offering all three of those things just the way that we want. So this is a Chase Slate card. So the balance transfer intro APR is 0%. And then the transfer intro period is up to, or actually not up to, it's for 15 months. And then the fee is a 0 fee as long as the transfers are made within 60 days of the account opening. So basically you start your credit card and then just make sure you transfer the first 60 days. If you do it after that, they charge you 3%. So this is one of those winner ones that you would want to find. If we scroll down a little bit more, so this one is 0% balance transfer fee, which is great. Transfer period is really long. It's 21 months, which is great. But as we can see here, the balance transfer fee, it's a 3%, and there is no 0% on that. So that's one that I would probably not be as interested in. But this is one of those things that you can run the numbers on, and if it makes sense to you to go with a 3% balance transfer fee, if you're still going to come out way ahead by doing so, then that's definitely something to consider. All right, so here's another one. So this one has a balance transfer intro rate of 7.9%. There's no balance transfer fee, and then this is the standard rate that comes up here. And something I should also mention, and this is, I think in the grand scheme of things, not that big a deal, but there are certain cards that have annual fees. This one doesn't have any annual fee, and for any of these cards, you can kind of click on the link on any of these and get more details. But the annual fee is something to consider because for most cards, it's around $100. I think a lot of the Chase cards are $100-ish bucks, if I remember correctly. And which, if you're transferring any kind of balance at all, you're going to make that up by going from a 15% or 20% rate down to 0. So you're going to more than make that up really quickly. But it is something to pay attention to because some of the credit cards, I think like some of the American Express ones are really high annual fees of $300-$400 or something. So just something to keep in mind as you're kind of looking at these. And so scrolling down here, here's another one. There was one that I saw earlier that also looked like a pretty good one. Yeah, I think it was this Quicksilver one. So this is Capital One Quicksilver. And this one is actually a rewards card, but they have a pretty good program here. So they have a balance transfer fee of $0. They don't charge anything there. The intro period is 15 months, and it's 0% on balance transfers. Now, the downside here is this purchase APR. So 23%. So once this 15 months is done, it's going up to 23%. So this is where you just got to make sure that you're either paying it off, whatever you transfer over here in 15 months, or you are moving it again 15 months later, because kicking all of your balance up to 23% is going to eat away any of those benefits very, very quickly. So that was kind of the method that we used to kind of transfer a lot of our money over and reduce our interest rate on a lot of those balances. So I would definitely consider this an advanced strategy. And like I said, know yourself, know your strengths and weaknesses, and don't dive into this if this is something that you don't think you can do well. And also, like I said before, this is not at all necessary to reach your goal. So just keep that in mind, and I hope you find this helpful.